Hello, everybody. Jeff Mason with SimpleBiz360 podcast with two very exciting guests today. We have Julie Shaw and Cara Peroutka of FromScratchBakehouse.com in Wentzville, Missouri. So we are really excited to have you both here, and we just love if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and business just to start off. Julie?
Sure. Let's see. I have been married for about 18 years. I have 3 children. Austin, who is just turned 16 and is driving away. And Campbell, who's about to be 14. And then Holly is 8. Wow. So, yeah, we've friends and neighbors started a business together. And here we are.
You are neighbors? Or that
we were.
We were, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Our kids
cool.
are really close in age. I've got 3 boys. My oldest is 14, so same as her middle, and then 12 and 10.
Wow.
And we lived across the street from each other, but that's been, 12 years ago. Brody, I was pregnant with Brody.
Yeah, we moved in when Campbell was 1, so 13 years.
And it was,
wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. So friends, that's a great way to start
off
a business.
as friends, yes. Friends and neighbors first.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then I had a crazy idea.
And you're both from the St. Louis area, I take it,
Yeah.
right? Correct. So you're from around here where we are.
Yes, I grew up in Chesterfield. Went to school out here.
And you were out in the St. Charles County area?
Yeah, originally from Nebraska, and then spent part of my childhood here and in Iowa, and then back here.
Wow.
again.
Whereabouts in Nebraska?
Omaha.
Wow. Very cool. Yeah. So my family homesteaded in Stanton County, Nebraska.
Okay.
Way back in the 1800s. So I've got a little Cornhusker in me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. 11 kids and 2 adults in a 12 by 14 house.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
And everyone stayed mentally sound.
Yeah. That's how homesteaders do it because there's so much time in the
outside
in the field.
Yeah,
but
you
yeah,
don't
so
need the house.
That's crazy.
Well, very cool. Well, thank you so much for being on today. And folks, it was really great. How I love the personal connection of having guests on here that I've somehow come to know or be introduced to or do have known for a while. And so it was the day before Christmas this year. My wife had asked me to go pick up a gluten-free coffee cake, and it was a cinnamon coffee cake, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so I went over to this location in Wentzville, Missouri, and I pulled up, and it was this older house. And I go in, and there are Julie and Cara waiting for me with this package and all these other packages that, I was like, wow, other people are doing this too. And so, we just got to talk, and they took me on a tour around the house there, which we'll get to in this interview. And I just thought, wow, what a great story. What a great concept. Let's have you on if you're interested. So here we are today. So we're really excited, and just thanks for being with us. And if you like the show and the content and you want to subscribe, if you're on YouTube and you look at the screen, the lower right-hand corner, there's a little favicon there. If you hover your cursor over that, and you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube through that. Now, you do have to be signed in into YouTube to do that, but we have plenty we're on 26 listening channels. Any of your friends or relatives, we're on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, you name it. We're all over there too. So a lot of fun, but we just thank you for being with us. And what I'd love to just do is, ask you how you met each other, but we kind of broached on that early on. So you've each got 3 kids. Mm-hmm. So 6 kids next to each other growing. That's a pretty wild little neighborhood right there in itself.
Our neighborhood had
A lot of
tons
kids.
of kids.
Wow.
The street was just constantly full of kids playing all the time, it was great. So, but yeah, our kids played, but they're a little different in ages. But Campbell and Trey are good friends, and so.
Wow. So you bake. You're both bakers. Was this something that, as your neighbors, like Julie's baking stuff and bringing it to your house, and you're bringing it to her house?
Not really.
So Julie was doing custom cookies for how many years?
I started when Austin was about 1, just doing them out of my house. Yeah. So for about the last 15 years. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were doing that. I roped her onto PTA with me for our elementary school because I decided it would be a good idea to run the PTA. And I said, if I have to do this, you're doing it with me.
I said, that's fine. You be in charge and I will help.
And so we kind of got going there, and then we started talking more and more about baked goods and stuff. And as we did things together with the PTA, it kind of just blossomed. And we ended up moving not far away, but Julie called me one day and was like, I want to come have coffee. And I'm like, sure, come on over. This will be great. And so Julie came over and we had some coffee and she said, I think we should start a business.
Because we had kind of talked about it. Yeah, I had thrown it out a few times. Like, okay, no, I think we should do this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, you actually came and picked up from the yellow house where we are now. But when we originally started at my new house, we had a walkout basement, and so we talked about how we wanted to start this business and what could we do? Should we find space? What would make the most sense? And so we actually ended up building out a kitchen in the basement of my house. It was a walkout. So the thought pattern was people can come in through that door and pick up, and we'll just kind of start off low with not a lot of overhead, which worked out really well for us.
Because we knew that we didn't want a typical retail bakery. Like, that's not what we were looking for. So the thought of, someone ordering something and then they can just come and pick it up, and that's what we wanted to do. Because above all of this, we always said our families come first. We want to be a bit available for our children, because both of us had stayed home, for the whole time that our kids were younger. And so that's what was most important. So it just fit to be able to be in her home. And it was great. I had my little key and I'd go around the back and let myself in and bake. And so it worked out. It did.
So
it was
how
great.
old is the business?
We started in spring of 2017. Mm-hmm. So this is our fourth, right?
Yeah.
Fourth spring.
So you had a love for baking. Did you have an affinity for baking as well? So you did.
Yeah, and that's what was funny is that the conversations I was having with other moms too, where people don't bake from scratch a whole lot anymore. And that was how I was raised. It was how Julie was raised. Like, grandma did it this way. Yeah. This is what you did. And so I would have people come over and, if they're just over for dinner, I'd say, okay, I'll make cookies or whatever. And people were like, well, where's the package? I'm like, what do you mean, where's the package? Like, we're going to actually mix up the cookies. And so it became this long-standing joke. So some of our friends would say, well, gosh, I need this for the kids. And I'd say, oh, I'll do it for you. Mm-hmm. And Julie was already doing the custom cookies too. And so it was like this, it just made sense that, okay, so clearly there's a need. There's a lot of mamas who work and don't have time to do this too. So why don't we start doing it? Yeah. And it just made sense then to put it into a business mode. But like Julie said, the retail side of it, never wanted to be tied to a storefront. That's never been us. So.
I don't want to get up in the middle of the night and start baking. That.
You really don't want us up at 3 a.m. baking.
That's what we always said. We're like, nobody wants that. And, and you can't, when you have 3 kids and you drive them to school every day, like, you just can't. Yeah. I couldn't do that. We both have, my husband traveled a lot. And so he wasn't going to, there's a lot of times he just wasn't there. So it was on me to get the kids to school. So.
Oh, absolutely. No, I can. Well, and folks, so what this is this is an order and pickup business model. So, I've been in the wholesale side of selling to retailers and e-commerce people, whether those e-commerce businesses drop ship or whether they stock and ship. And so I've just not run across a lot of business models out there that had the order and pick up. So, what kind of floored me that day before Christmas, and I walked in, I saw all the packages and I'm, wow, okay, this isn't a store.
There's no case.
Yeah, I just didn't realize. And so it's an interesting business model, but I totally get it. Now, is this, and forgive me for being naive, but is this something that's taking hold more and more across the country?
No idea. Yeah. We did see McAllister's.
McAllister's, I had just read an article not too long ago that they were going that way. It cuts down with baked goods, like the waste. Like, we could decide that we wanted bake all these cupcakes, all these cookies, all these cakes, and have a case full of that. Well, you may or may not have people walk in to buy them, especially if you're not a established store, So this way we know exactly what you want. We know exactly what ingredients we need to buy, how much we need to buy, and we bake it, and then it's yours and it's gone. So
it really is more of a dessert catering.
It's a catering. Yeah. And that's a little easier to explain to people.
Yeah.
Is
it
that
makes sense
we're caterers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's so delicious. Now, my wife is not gluten intolerant. She's not, she doesn't suffer from celiac, but, we try to, it's the inflammation that comes from gluten that just bothers her. So we try to convert to gluten-free wherever we can. So this was a gluten-free coffee cake. And of course, a lot of the connotations with that is that, you're going to sacrifice taste. You're going to sacrifice, quality of food and texture, density. And, you know, I've come to find over the years of swinging that way with my wife that that's absolutely incorrect. And let me tell you, I mean, Christmas came around and, we had this out the next day after Christmas. I'm realizing no one else is hitting this thing but me. I had the rest of this for 4 days. It was
That's
my
awesome.
treat. Oh, my God. And it was so good even the 4th day. I was like, oh my gosh.
It is hard though. Like we've come across a lot of clients who have not only gluten-free, but dairy-free and egg-free. And I mean, we've got a lot of kiddos out there too who have a lot of sensitivities. So that's one of the things I think that Julie and I strove to do from the very beginning was make sure that everybody could have baked goods too. And so that's been a big piece. And we like to tell people too, like, look at the menu, and if there's something that's not there, let us know. So we try to help people or serve however we can, and tweak things however we can. And so some people get turned off by the order pickup because, oh, how much notice do you need? And I don't plan that far out. And we always say to people, email us. Even if it's that day or if it's the next day, email us. Because if we can do it, we'll do it. But what we ask for is, we'd like more notice. And there's certain things we cannot do, like custom cookies cannot be done the next day. Sorry, they take 4 to 5 days. So some of our stuff definitely has to have notice. But, we really try to personalize what we do and work with whoever, whenever. And so that's a big piece of
Yeah, we wanted it to be customizable. So like you said, like whatever's on our website is kind of almost a jumping off point. Like if you call and say, gosh, my grandma used to make, such and such.
Yes.
Yeah. And could you try? I'm like, sure. Like I'll try to find different recipes and, work with that. And if it's something you want to try, then great. So there's so many things out there that can be baked. And, you can end up having a massive menu, which really isn't what we want either. But I love working with people and trying to figure out, what they need.
Well, I mean, and that's great. You're flexible that way, and your pictures and your website. Just folks to give you an idea, cookies, bundt cakes, cupcakes, muffins, bars, custom cookies, cakes. We may, what I think we should do is Dietz and Matt back there. If you guys could break open those cupcakes, and maybe we could bring them out and tilt that box and just let the viewers see that. That would be awesome, because they were kind enough to give us a nice, big. Feels like a heavy box of cupcakes, which is, the young lady before us, or before you today, who we interviewed, she has a brand called Dudes Love Brunch.
Oh.
And so we were talking about that, and I said, well, when I first heard the name, she was saying, well, a lot of people, they first hear the name, they're like, what is that? I said, when I first heard the name, I thought, well, you hit a home run there, because most guys would love to go to a brunch and have more to eat than less.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, so we grew up in that gluttony, and so I know
brunch is so good.
Oh, I'm going to be hitting these cupcakes. Speaking of gluttony, for a while. So again, we love to just give a flavor to other entrepreneurs, or I call them chin rubbers out there thinking about opening up a business. Did you have to have a collegiate education to do what you're doing, or do you have?
Oh, that's just
funny.
Background?
Yeah, because.
If you'd like to know our backgrounds, it's quite interesting. You want to?
Yeah, sure. I have an undergraduate degree in business, and I have a master's in education. So no.
Wow.
You at least have business in there somewhere.
Yes,
I have my undergrad is psychology, and I have a master's in counseling. Wow. So no business background on my end.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
other than my
not
father.
that I would say that I ever think about, I learned this in college. Like, not once.
Bingo.
Have I, it's just,
right.
I think it's finding something that you really love to do and just figuring out how to do it. I mean, we did not, I would not say that we had this plan to start with, and it's just, it evolves. And it's like, I didn't think that we would own a 110-year-old house and we'd be doing, the other stuff that we're doing out of it. When we started this. So
interesting.
It just evolves.
So I don't mean to, I don't have a master's, but I have an undergraduate, and not to minimize the importance or the value of education. But again, there's a lot of people out there, may even be 16, 17, 18 listening to this going, do I go to college? What, I think we're all proving to ourselves in this day and age that unless you have a specialty degree, it's not necessary to do life anymore like it was a great stepping stone of the past. Am I right or wrong?
I would say that I sometimes agree with you and sometimes I don't, because there's a lot of growing up to do in those years. Yeah. And so I think college is the education piece too, but there's a lot of social emotional development that happen over a college, career per se. So no, do you have to have a college degree to start a business? No, I don't think you no, you don't. I actually have a brother-in-law who's incredibly successful and does not have a college degree. But do I think that there are also other pieces to it besides the education? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I joke that I don't use my master's, but I use it every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it. I literally feel like I use it every day. It's a communications thing. Okay. So I think that I don't think it should ever hold someone back. If you don't have a college degree or you're not feeling like you should go to school, that's totally fine. Do it your way. Absolutely. But at the same time too, there's a lot of benefits to it as well. So
agreed. And I'm glad you said what you said, because, I was a recruiter for many years. I went to 39 colleges and universities on the East Coast, and we would try to draw some of the entry level employees out of those collegiate areas. And I always, I really immersed myself into that whole understanding of what does a college education mean. I was a sociology major. And yes, group behavior, I certainly use it quite a bit, but it wasn't imperative to get there. But I think college does more for you in that it teaches you how to plan and prepare and stick to a schedule and to be compliant with certain guidelines you're given. It, delayed gratification, it allows you to do something for 4 years to get something at the end. So it makes you appreciate the value of hard work. And there's so many other benefits from it, socialization aspects, working with other people. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there that, from monetary reasons, for just a variety of different things, say, but my neighbor, but my uncle, but my they're successful and they didn't do it. Do I really need to?
I think it's more, I feel like people might be going more towards that. Let's ask those questions. Like, I feel like for our age, it was like after high school, you just went to college. Maybe knowing what you were going to study, maybe not. But I think now maybe, coming to the end of your high school career saying, should I go to college? Like, what do I want to do? And do I need a college career or degree to do that? And if not, maybe look at other options. I don't know that those questions were ever really being asked,
I agree.
15, 20 years ago. But, I hate to think that kids would think, oh, I have to go to college to be successful. Like, I don't think that is true at all. There's so many other avenues, and just, all these kids, they're so different. I don't know that a 4-year college is the pathway that everyone needs to go. And I think just opening conversations up for kids more, and to know, if that's not the path that you're choosing, that's okay too. And you can be very successful.
Yes. The high schools look different though too.
Yeah.
There's a lot more offered. And this is speaking more for the public high school that's around us. I know there's a lot more offered there now than there ever was when I was in school. Like, there's culinary tracks and there's tech tracks, and there's a lot of different tracks you can take in high school. So I think kids coming out of high school too, maybe even slightly have more experiences through high school than necessarily my experience maybe weren't as diverse, 20 plus years ago. So
I always think it's getting the parents on board too. Like, parents our age, getting it out of your head that, oh, your kid has to go to college. Like, trying to, maneuver around that a little bit and maybe open it up to the fact that maybe your kid isn't going to 4-year. Yeah. They're going a different path, and that can be okay too.
Yeah, I don't think there's I think, as a society, there should be no, definitely no shaming or no, anything negative about saying, no, I don't want to do it. And, a lot of people, certainly I think
it's a lot of money.
It is.
To not know what you want to do, you're going to come out with a lot of money sucked into that career. And if you don't know what you're going to do, that's
absolutely
a big thing to take on.
We were just talking about that earlier. Alex went to St. Louis County Community College and then to Webster. And, I think again, that's a great piece of advice. If you're going to do it, maybe test the waters at a lower.
I was a JUCO kid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I went to Flow.
Yeah.
And that was my biggest piece too for me going to college was soccer, to be honest with you. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I needed to go to college, but that was my way in, and it paid for my college, which was great. But I started out at Flow and then transferred to UMSL. And that's a piece too. I think, like you said, there's a lot of parents a JUCO or a community college is not to be looked down on either. Because I think in your head you have this they need to go to a big 4-year, they need to go. no, actually it's like a great financial way to do it. It's cheaper. Like there's just, you don't have all the extras and distractions too from it. I don't know. It's a good path to take.
You get that, like what you were saying, living on your own and getting
Sure.
those life lessons. You don't have to pay for a expensive 4 years college to get those life lessons.
Sure.
You can do that at
Absolutely.
a different path.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of good options.
Yeah. I interviewed University of Pennsylvania Wharton Business School. I went there, and, generally when you're interviewing at a college, you have 30-minute interviews, and you usually have 12 of them. So anyway, I was at Penn Station in Philadelphia, taking the train back to New York City. And one of the kids I interviewed was at the train station. So he said, "Hey, Mr. Mason, you want to go grab a beer?" So we went and grabbed a beer, and we started talking. And it was funny. He was saying that, and I know we're digressing here, but he said that I feel like I can talk to you. It's like,
That's good. There we go.
He was saying, at University of Pennsylvania, we don't get as many things as you do from a state college. And at that time, my university, Stockton University in New Jersey, wasn't a university status. It was a state college. He said, but you guys, you have smaller classes. You might have 30, 40 people in a class. You might have accessibility to a professor. I go into a class taught by a TA, 750 people
Right.
on an audio screen. I can't go and talk to my professors that easily. Now, what I get, you don't get competition, but if you want to get in Wharton Business School, there's 75 people and there's 700 of us trying for
Right.
it. And then you may go to school with all kids from New Jersey counties, where I go to school, my roommates from Louisiana, Bangladesh, Washington, Calcutta, and I'm getting a cultural education. But when it's all said and done, we're all doing the same things. We're all
Sure.
learning how to meet timelines, deadlines, do
Be
things.
an adult and a professional.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's really interesting, even though those guys, coming from the Ivy League communities get the better jobs and so forth. But it's so funny to really break it down that way.
But that's a good thing. Like, that's interesting that you said that, like the better jobs. But like, for you, is it actually the better job? Like, for me,
Yeah.
what we're doing, like, somebody might look at it and be like, oh, they're just baking.
Yeah.
It's nothing. But for us, like, there's also an investment in this house. Like, there's a long-term plan involved too. So this doesn't look real flashy and real amazing, but at the end of the day, this is what works for our family and works for where we're at. And like I said, there's an investment in property as well. So those pieces kind of come together. We're in Wentzville, which is not a big,
Right.
I love Wentzville, don't get me wrong, people, but we're not like a big glamorous town. Like, it's Midwest. So I think you also have to put into perspective too, like, what is it you want out of life? What is it you want out of a career? And then look at it that way. And then don't measure yourself
Yeah.
versus anybody else. Because somebody who wants to be a lawyer and be in a huge firm, that's very different than, a very small business.
Right.
So there's a lot out there. I think people have to stop, try and ignore what's happening around them and think, like, what's happening here and what do I want and how do I want to move forward? And that can be hard, but I think that's what people, whether you're a kid trying to figure out if you're going to college, whether you're someone like us, like, should I start this business? Like, just stop and discern for yourself. And whether that includes prayer or thought or meditation or yoga or whatever, but figuring out what's right for you, not based on anybody else.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, I mean, listen, it's great advice, and I think that I think society has conditioned us to,
100%.
think other ways. Just like what comes out of my mouth is the better jobs. Yeah, no, is it necessarily better? No, but it's the more high paying. It's the
Sure.
It's what
bigger
society has
company.
said is the
Correct.
best.
It's the status
Correct.
too.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college, or where like that?
You're in St. Louis. Where'd you go to high school?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It all.
So introspection. Let's and I know that wasn't one of the things we had put on the menu to talk about, but we talk a lot about thinking at SimpleBiz360. It's a big focus in the book. It's a big focus on when I speak and stuff is to get away and go, whether it's through prayer, meditation, getting in touch with nature, but sequestering yourself, turning off technology and thinking about things so that you can come to grips with things like you're talking about. What's the best thing for me? Do you find, is that part of your process, or is it not because you have kids? It's
Yeah.
kind of hard with kids.
No,
I don't know.
you need to sequester yourself
Yeah.
away from your children sometimes. No, I mean, definitely for me, it would be prayer, like just thinking, and whether that doesn't always happen in solitude by myself, but it's just it's kind of what I go to. Like, I know that, God has a plan for my life. And so I want to be in step with that plan. So for me to go to him, that's where I'm going to find what I'm supposed to do.
Okay. Good. So, okay. Great.
No, I would agree 100% with you, Julie, on that. And for me personally, like my yoga mat, I feel really close to God on my yoga mat. But what's interesting, like when you talk about small businesses and thinking through what do you want to do with your business and how do you move forward, I am very blessed that I have Julie because there's two of us. So for me, 90% of the time before we make a decision on anything, we do move, like we try to be very, like put the brakes on things and not make decisions too fast. But because we'll probably end up having 3 or 4 discussions between the two of us where we started at the first discussion looks very different where we are on the 4th discussion. Yeah. But because we have that, relationship, I feel very comfortable going to her and saying, okay, I know we talked about this yesterday, but here's where I'm at today. Yeah. And so for us, a partnership for me personally is the only way that this particular business would work. We've evolved since 2017 and there's other pieces to us. So we own that property. And so we also had renters. So there's 2 pieces to us. We have that baking business side of things. And then, we are landlords as well. Yeah. And we all experienced COVID over this last year. So we not only struggled with our business, but then we had renters who were also struggling with their businesses too. So trying to find this balance between how do we keep this business going, how do we, support our renters and try and figure all of that out, which was really interesting. And unfortunately for us, we lost our biggest renter in June of last year, which then catapulted our business into, okay, so now we have to move to the next step because now we have this house and this house costs a lot of money. So we need income off of that. And so that forced us then into events with the house, which changed our business. But the events piece, last year was really rough. People are not gathering. So we didn't have a lot of income coming in. So to be honest with you, our business was a cash flow was the main goal through the end of the year and through January. And now we're seeing that swing up. We've also grabbed a couple more renters for the house, which is great. So it's just this ever evolving, but it's caused us to have every month there's been a lot of conversations and it hasn't been easy. I'll be honest. I got shingles in November.
Wow.
If that tells you that there's stress, that tells you there's stress. And so a lot of us is just bouncing it back and forth between the two of us until we get to a point where we're like, okay, yep, we're comfortable. Now we'll move forward. But having a partner, so people who are thinking about businesses, if you can have a partner, have a partner.
I can't imagine trying to do it on your own. I know lots of people do and, and
kudos
successful.
To them.
Yes.
Yeah.
But just being able to call her or text her or when we're baking together, be like, should we do this? Yeah. Should we not do? What if we did this? Or what, and if a day later, a lot of times we'll make a decision. We'll come back a day or two later and be like, was that really, maybe we should do it this way and it'll just change. And so, yes, having someone to do this with has been fabulous.
Well, and a great message for everybody listening who's thinking about this. And so let's stay with this a little bit. Let's rewind the clock to maybe 2016. So when did you start talking about doing this together, and how long did it take from the initial discussions to actually opening your business in the basement of that house?
We started talking about it, I feel like at the end of 2016. Mm-hmm. It was when it kind of started brainstorming at that point.
Yeah, I feel there was a lot of brainstorming. There was a lot of just us talking and maybe we should do this or maybe we could do this. And then it would kind of go on the back burner for, a month or so. And then we'd get back together and are we still thinking about this? And
official paperwork was March of 2017. We formed the LLC, but even forming the LLC at that point, I don't know 100% that we really knew how it was actually going to look at that point.
And we had started to kind of think, well, maybe we should find a space, like a commercial, space, still not thinking that we wanted retail, but somewhere where we could just bake out of. But then when you started adding the cost of buying all the equipment and all that stuff, and rent, and it got really big. And I mean, I will forever remember we were in the gym and you were on the bike or something. You're like, what if we built it in my basement? And we're like, oh, okay. That might be a cool idea. And so then then after we decided that, I feel like it moved pretty quickly.
It took a little while to build out. I think by that fall, the kitchen was finally done. Like we made the initial plans in that spring. We were still doing some stuff out of our own kitchens.
Yeah,
and then
I was still doing the cookies and stuff out of my kitchen.
Our first fall it would have been fall of 2017.
Yeah.
So we honestly were not in that kitchen very long before we bought the house. We were there a year because we bought the property we're at now in fall of 2018. So it was a year and we bought that other property.
And that was kind of we had friends that owned a boutique, and we were kind of talking with them. We're like, wouldn't it be cool if we could kind of combine these? Because we were both looking for storefront, and I think it was you that saw the listing for
I called
the Yellow
Chad.
House.
Chad said, "How about this one?" And I said, "No."
Yeah.
I'm like, "That is huge and it's expensive, and no." And he's like, "Okay." And I kept pushing other ones at him, and I'm like, "What about this one?" And he's like, "Way too much work," and he kept sliding the Yellow House back over to us. I couldn't.
And
get
I
away
would
from the
drive
Yellow
by
House.
and like just kind of sit there and look at it, and then when I took my parents over there, I was like, okay, so what do you think about? My dad was wonderfully excited about it, and they both were, and so then it just kind of snowballed from there, and
It's been a learning experience.
and we had to bring the husbands in.
Oh, I imagine.
Okay, so what do you think about buying a house with Mike and Cara?
Well, and we're going to spend some time on the house in a second. So let me go, again, for people listening, was your fascination with going into business, was it so you could work together, or was it so you could bake? Did you know baking was going to be the thing?
We knew baking.
Yeah, baking was always going to be be the thing.
Okay,
that's
so
what.
you knew.
Yeah, that's
Because I'll
what
be honest,
wanted.
we were not like super close friends. We had grown a lot over the PTA thing, but this like now, like you're my sidekick.
Yeah.
Like, she can't get rid of me at this point. But it really was about the baking, and I think it was you reach a point with your kids too, where my youngest was going into kindergarten, and it was. I remember saying to my husband, "What am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just going to sit in this house. Like, this is, I have to do something." And so it was this constant, like, and I think a lot of women, when your kids get to that age where they are at school, you stop and you think, like,
What am I going to do now?
Right. Is this me? Am I just waiting at home for them, or what am I doing? And so there was that piece in me to want to do something else.
Yeah.
And so, like Julie had said at the very beginning, like it was very front and center for us. There are things that we're not willing to sacrifice, and family and the kids were one of them. So how do we do this? And there was, retail was never going to work for us.
Yep.
And honestly, like I just, in thinking of wanting to go into business, I just knew that I could do this with Cara. Like, it seemed weird, but it was just like I had a but like we're very similar, but different enough to where it works. But it's just you know people, and if you're going to get along with somebody in this type of situation. And it's like I just knew.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could do this with Cara.
you could sense it.
Yeah.
Yeah. How interesting. Well, no, listen. And so you heard Cara and Julie talk about the house. So this house, if you go on their website, you're going to see another section. You hit on another tab, and it's called the Event House. I believe it's called on your website. But your pictures are phenomenal of the house. So you'll get an idea, folks. If you're in the St. Charles County area, you're in the St. Louis metro area, you're looking for a place to have a networking group. You're looking for a place to meet your company. You want to have a meeting, I guess.
Parties.
Parties. Want to take
showers.
Showers. What a great house. And on the website, you'll see these pictures of, to me, looks very Pottery Barnish, in terms of the adornments. It's very, it's just
Vintagey.
very, yes, very cool. And of course, I don't know if you remember, but my jaw was dropped when I went to pick up my package the day before Christmas, and you ladies took me around and showed me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Really is just neat.
Good.
And so if you're ever looking for something, please consider them. It's great. They'll walk through the, flexibility and timing with you. But so let's talk about roadblocks. I think that you each have 3 kids. The curveballs of life, right? We get curveballs in life. If you could share with us some of the curveballs in starting the business, other than, what to build out. What did you run into? Any major stumbling blocks?
The city.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. So we've learned a lot. You don't realize there's a lot of hoops to jump through. And that probably was more primarily with the building itself.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that was the first commercial buy for a property. My husband and I have rental properties, but for commercial, that was our first property that direction. And so it's very different than residential properties. So there was a big learning curve there. So there were times when you felt like you were just beating your head against the wall trying to figure it out. I feel like the business, for the most part, though, it's been more, our biggest roadblock is educating people, because they hear bakery and they think case full of treats, and that's just not who we are. And so it's trying to re-educate people and saying that, yes, we are a bakery, but we just work differently, and you just have to plan a little bit more for us. So I think that's been one of the biggest roadblocks, I feel like.
Yeah, and just, I mean, time will always be a roadblock. Just feel, we're obviously both moms, and just that tug of, you know, I want to do this with my kids all the time, but I also, you know, baking is very, you can't just put it off. You know, I can't put that off till tomorrow. Like there's a timeline, and I have to get this done because they're coming to pick this up tomorrow. And so just the timing and how much time you need to spend there versus
time management,
what your weekend's going to look like with the kids. And it's a constant scheduling kind of thing.
Well, it allows you to understand what available time you have, what you can say yes to, what you can walk away from, you know, what you don't commit to.
Because we will look at the schedule. I'm like, oh, we're getting full. Like, and depending on what we have going on in a weekend, we're like, you know, I think we're booked. Like I can't take another order because it's, and I think that's the other thing, letting people know that it's just us. Like I can't put it off to somebody, to another employee that can bake for me. Like if we're not available, it's not getting done. So that's the other part to it.
And we're in such a just-in-time society. It's like everybody just wants to pick up the phone and be able to get it 20 minutes later. Like, yes, can I get this tomorrow? Like, no, you can't actually. I wish I could. I wish I could be here all the time and be able to do this for you, but I just, you know, I look at the schedule in the beginning of the week and kind of plan out the week, knowing that some other things will probably get thrown in there, but, you know. Things just get full. What was the most natural part of the entrepreneur process for both of you? I mean, what felt the most comfortable out of everything?
I don't know. That's a great question. You handle the kitchen. You were
so
natural with the kitchen.
Just that is natural. The baking part is natural to me. I am very much just let me stay in the kitchen and pump out what I need to pump out. I mean, I'll tell you, she's a natural at working with people, which it's great the way our two businesses are. I mean, I'm totally happy to be in that kitchen and baking. But Cara is extremely good at conversing with people and making them feel comfortable and all of that stuff.
Do you leverage those strengths?
Yeah, we've actually, I think we found our balance that way, because I like to bake, but I honestly would prefer not to be stuck in the kitchen. Like there's just a piece of me. I like doing it. Julie I feel like you're much more graceful and way better in there. And she is an artist. So anything that you see decorated from our kitchen is all Julie. And I have no problem saying that. There's not an artistic bone in my body, not one.
So those decorated cookies, that's your handiwork.
Yes, they're all Julie. Yes.
I don't like calling someone on the phone, you know, and Cara will. Cara, no problem. I'll just call them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to call them, you know? And so I would just tell me what you want. Let me bake it and here you go. And Cara loves to talk to people and is so good at it.
Well, it's good you're able to, you know, realize your strong points.
Yeah, if we both just wanted to be in the kitchen, it wouldn't work. Yeah. Or if, you know, we were both like, oh, let me have the people. Like someone needs to bake the cake.
What do you think today, sitting here now, you know, in your fourth year or going into your fifth year, whichever it is, what lessons have each of you learned from this whole experience? I mean, what have you walked away, if you had to close the doors today, what have you walked away with?
I feel like there needs to be a disclaimer though, because here's the deal. So we own this small business. Julie and I are blessed to have husbands who have really good jobs though too. So for us, this last year has been really, really hard. So, you know, there hasn't always been a paycheck. And that's the key is to keep the business going, which is super frustrating at times. But it's also like, I thank God daily for Michael and for the job that he has, because if I didn't have him, I don't know that our business would be here after 2020, if that makes sense. Right. So we've learned so much, but I also feel like I don't want people to look at this and be like, oh, that just sounds easy. Like,
yeah,
they like to bake and they did it. And there's other pieces involved too that have made us successful. And one of those is the fact that we both have husbands with full-time jobs who also are supporting our family as well, if that makes sense.
Oh,
and that allow us to look and to see, okay, what this could be in 5 years is different than what it is now. And we know like there is definitely a long-term plan. And so, yes, right now we're doing all these things for that long-term plan and what this house could be and could bring us. So, yes, the husbands. Yeah. They're
well, I think this is a very important subject matter, and thank you for both touching on it because, I think there could be some daydreaming and love affair in the mind going on as a young person, 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, saying, you know what, boy, I'm going to start a business. And you know what, I bet you I can make 40 grand or 60 grand or 100 grand,
That would be amazing.
Yeah, right? And walk, and
you're not going to do it making a cake.
So here you are.
Yeah.
Here I am. I mean, I run a sales agency. I work for 7 different companies. I had an English gentleman on back in November, and he said, it's a side hustle.
Yeah.
So this is my side hustle, SimpleBiz360.
Yeah.
I wrote a book, which is a 30-year goal. I put a podcast together. Am I making money? Could I sustain on SimpleBiz360? Absolutely not.
Right.
So just like you have husbands, I have a sales agency that allows me to.
It's pieces. It's all these pieces that fit together.
Correct.
100%.
Correct.
Yeah. And when I do start to freak out about something, I mean, my husband is fabulous with saying it's an investment too. Like you have to, when I'm like, I'm going to go bake again.
Right. I'm slightly annoyed.
But, or when I'm constantly going to do pickups or, all that stuff, he's like, it's an investment and it's okay. Right. And you're still working, and Cara's very good at it. She's like, we're still working for a goal, like this, it is all part of starting a business. Like you don't just flip on a switch and
those side hustles can be good, though. You learn a lot from them.
You do.
And I feel like I know a lot of people right now who have a lot of side hustles or a lot of people who have side hustles. And I think that that's great. And I feel like we've moved really far past a 9-to-5 job. Yeah. Like I think that there are tons of people who do that. Actually, there's tons of people who work like 7 to 7, like it's just, I think people are reinventing themselves and coming up with things that work. And it's not necessarily always traditional, but that doesn't matter. It works, whatever it is you're passionate about.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I thank you so much because I think it's really important for, everybody to hear that it's just, it does create the opportunity, when you want to go into business, you really have to think through it. You have to think about the pieces of the puzzle. You really have to sit down with a calculator and monetarily figure things out. Could this be a main hustle or should this be a side hustle? And I think it really deserves that kind of careful thought. Could it evolve into something?
Sure.
Sure. But I think we all have to be realistic in that.
And then if you don't know, being able to say, I don't know. I think when you said, what have you learned? And one of the things for me, like, I feel very comfortable being very vulnerable with Julie and saying to her, I have no idea. Like, our line is, we'll figure it out.
We probably uttered that line more than anything else. All right, we'll figure it out. Like, someone will order something or something with the event side. We're like, well, we'll just figure it out. Like, and you have to, because we do not have all the answers to all the questions that pop up all the time. We could never have sat down and said,
manual.
oh, we need to figure all of this stuff out before we can open the business. Like that was never going to be an option. And so it's a constant, that kind of worked last time, but maybe we'll do it this way this time.
Oh yeah, so. Absolutely. So one of the things we talk a lot about here is the customer experience. And it's not always about opening up the box of cupcakes. I don't know if they're listening. I don't know if they're listening, but by the way, Matt and Dietz are having a conversation behind the glass. We can see him, but it's not always about the cupcakes or the product. It's a lot of the times it's about the experience. It's about how was that experience sitting at that restaurant? How was that ordering online and going through the whole thing? How was that conflict resolution in the middle handled? How was that whole experience. And so is that something that you are finding that you're learning as you go along, or were you conscientious of it at the beginning, or are you, what's the customer experience like with you?
I mean, I feel like from the beginning, we've always wanted it to be like for people to feel very comfortable with us. Like if you have a weird suggestion or you have a weird request, like let's just talk about it. And I don't think we ever wanted anything to be rigid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we're different in that way, and it's just that like
It's a personal. I think
personal, yeah.
We
just,
really want it to be a personal thing, and getting into the events. You know, we were blessed to have a wedding at our house last weekend. You can't get much more personal than a wedding.
Sure.
Like, and that's someone's very big day. So for us, it's very important for us, and that your event and your baked goods obviously as well too. But like on the event side of things, it's very important for me that your event goes well. Like this is an experience in your life. So, and I think we have the same thoughts on the baking because it's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. Like my grandma Irene in heaven, I feel like sometimes when I screw things up, especially if it's her recipe, I'm like, I'm sorry. Like I disappointed you. But like, it's a very personal thing. And then when you start to hear people's stories too, where, you know, my child can't have these things and I really want them to have a cupcake. Well, Julie and I are like, well, then that child is having a cupcake.
We'll figure
like
out
we
what
will
they
figure
can
it
eat.
out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like there's something to be said about personal experience and life experience. And we as human beings need that connection. And so I think we've all learned over the last year how important that human connection is. And so that's been something that's been front and center with this business. It is literally just Julie and I. And I feel like I say that to a lot of our clients. This is it. We are who you deal with. So everything is very personal to us because this is our baby. And so we want you to have a good experience with it. So I think it's been very important. Yeah.
So
And
you just
even with the house, like when someone rents this house to have their pet, like we wanted to feel like it's their house or, you know, like it is, you're not just a venue, but like when you're
comfortable.
you feel comfortable. Like if you need to use a platter, like use a platter, you know, things in this house, like they're here for you to use. And we want you to feel
We like the house being used.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think one of our very important, thank you for touching on all that. One of our very important messages is, you know, when you have an event side of your business, which you do, that is all experiential. Because when you walk away from a wedding event or you walk away from a business meeting, you walk away from a networking group, whatever, you know, you're always looking at you kind of rating it in your own mind. How was that experience? How was the overall, you know, feel of it? And I think that it's harder to capture that essence when you're dealing with products and goods and services, or, you know, and some are so antiseptic, you know, in terms of products that, you know, it's A or B. How do I make this into a good experience? I think a lot of businesses miss that opportunity to say, okay, I might have a water bottle of, you know, clear or color, and those are the only two things I sell, but still that person buying it, I've got to make it so that person really remembers that was pain-free, or that was great, or people were nice, or it came when it said it did, or exceeded expectations. But I think we really have to press in on that experience level. And I don't think a lot of businesses, and what I feel, I don't think a lot of businesses get that as well as they should.
Sure.
Because you know, and I always go back to contractors. You never, ever, ever, ever sit at a backyard picnic and say, oh, wow, that deck looks nice. So who did your deck? Oh, so-and-so did it. But what? And it's never, I don't like the way they mitered that corner, and we didn't like the way they finished that top. We don't like the spindles. It's always, oh, they never called us back on time. They were so hard to get.
I
wasted so many time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always.
And it could be a great deck, but you remember
bingo.
the experience.
So you know, you're personalizing it. You're making sure that, hey, she wants cupcakes, she's getting cupcakes that way, you know. But so you're weaving it into your business model, which again, I just want to make sure everybody kind of hears that, because I think it's something that as more entrepreneurs venture off into that world, they have to keep an eye on that. You know,
sure.
And you know, we just again, the young lady who was here before, you know, very attuned to that, and she wants to make sure that, you know, she has this. We talked a little bit about it. I talk about it so often, but the Starbucks, you know, the whole big project at Starbucks years ago was all about to find out the brand identity. And when they really discovered the brand identity, they realized they were an atmospheric brand, that it wasn't so much about the coffee. It was about what happened when they came in to get coffee. And if you sum it all up, they realized we're not serving coffee to people, we're serving people coffee.
Ooh, I like that.
And if we think about that, you know,
People
I mean,
first.
yeah, people first, if we think about that. But yeah, a little bit about the house. Anything else about the house? What is the capacity you have for a business meeting? I mean, or for a networking group? What's the...
The house can hold up to 50 people. So what we usually like to say is we can seat 30 at tables. And then if you go up to 50, it's really more of a cocktail mingling kind of thing. So if you need tables for a meeting per se, it's about 30 that we can handle with that. But the house itself holds up to 50. And in the warmer months, we have a huge patio off the back. And so you can utilize that as well.
Okay.
So it's a unique property. It's a 110-year-old house. It used to be the telephone company in Wentzville. So, I mean, there's a lot of history behind this house. And it's just it's a very different venue. And what we found is that people see the pictures, they love the pictures, and then they want to come in and see the house. And as soon as they're inside the house, they're like, yes, this is perfect. We are fantastic for rehearsal dinners and showers. Like that's our bread and butter right now.
Okay, great.
Which is fantastic. Because that's a 30-ish kind of group.
Yeah.
We can do just about anything there, but that really is where our bread and butter is. And yeah, we've had fun with it.
It's Old Town, Wentzville? Is it, we would
Historic
really call it?
downtown.
Historic?
Downtown.
What's the, do you mind if the address is 205 something?
205 East Allen Street.
See that? I had that little piece of paper. I was going 205 East Allen. All right. So yeah, very cool. So anybody who wants to just take a look at it, but
Yeah.
I encourage you to go online, take a look at the pictures, great pictures. So if someone said, okay, what's your most unique product that you make, that you bake? Would there be a most unique product?
No, because I think that we're super traditional
Yeah.
and we're almost vintage or retro because that's how we don't do fondant. So
I always say we don't do themed cakes. You know, if you're looking for an Elmo birthday cake, like it's just not what when we think about. I think about like my grandma's layered cakes and just you know.
So maybe that
just
is the
old
unique
school,
piece.
yeah, old
Or old school
bakery stuff. Like like the bundt cakes and just more traditional stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not so much. We always laugh and say that we're kind of rustic, but it's I think a lot of times with pastries and desserts, it's all about like what it looks like and how it's plated. Well, for us, it's really about like the really good flavors. And so for me, I know that's going back to a lot of what my grandma did.
Yeah.
I mean, they just knew what they were doing back then. And so, yeah.
And I always laugh. I'm like,
Oh, look at you, right on cue.
Yeah. Sometimes the cakes may just look different from one time to the next time. Maybe a little taller, and maybe a little shorter. I don't know. Like it's just, it's really almost home baked.
Yeah.
From scratch. Just
so maybe from scratch would be really. I mean, you don't use any prefabricated
no,
mixtures.
I mean it's all we're just real butter and eggs and sugar.
Yeah.
Like nothing.
So
Nothing
too
weird.
crazy. Yeah.
So it's funny, so in let me ask you this. Do you focus on the element of creating memories? Is that part of your formula or business model? I mean, because you really are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're creating memories.
I mean, what I would love most is to have, a family like want to get all of their birthday cakes from us. Just say, "Oh,
because it's a
give me that,
relationship.
give me that cake again," or just it for us to be their bakery or the ones that bake the stuff for those special moments in their lives, and I think that's what we wanted it to be.
So it goes to the memory space.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, so I camp out. We call it camping out. I did it with my girls, which basically what I do is lay a bunch of quilts on the floor and I sit in, sleep in the same room with. So my grandson, I camp out with him and I tell him stories and stuff. And the last couple of times we've done this, he wakes up in the morning and he cuddles up with me and he says, "Poppy, show me the pictures of my Elmo cake." So he loves me to go back to when he was 2, I think it was, with his Elmo cake. And then all his pictures. And so then he wants me to put sound effects to the picture. He's sitting like, what's that, Poppy? You're saying, yo, what's everybody looking at? Yeah. What's this one, Poppy? And to him, and I'm kind of absorbing this as it's happening. And I'm saying to myself, this kid is really just craving the experience recall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, "Poppy, help me understand, what was this like? What was I saying here? What was I doing there? Where's Mommy there?"
Yeah.
And it's just, so
they want to remember those things.
Bingo. It's just something that we have to, be conscientious of, that the the memories are
Mm-hmm.
big part of what we do in these social gathering events and so forth. So what could you, if you had to give advice to another young entrepreneur that's out there chin rubbing, should I do this? What would be your biggest piece of advice?
That was a great face.
I know.
If you feel very passionate about it, I pursue it. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. That house took us quite a while to come around to it. And it was one of those things where I feel like there was a lot of prayer put into it and a lot of discernment and a lot of discussion. And there was a lot of times I think I called Julie and I'm like, can't do it. Yeah. It just will not work, the cost. And we push it aside. And then it kept coming back. Like, I felt like I couldn't get rid of it, to be honest with you, where I was like, okay, fine, God, this is what we're supposed to do. And I think I say this to Julie on a regular basis, where I'm like, apparently we're supposed to be here. And apparently we're supposed to be doing this, especially on those tough days when you're like, I don't know how I'm paying that credit card, those kinds of things, that you keep that in the back of your mind. So I would say if it's something that keeps coming to someone, like it keeps coming to you, and even when you push it away, it keeps coming back, then you probably need to pursue it and you need to give it a try. And at the end of the day, if you fail, figure out what you learned and then move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all going to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. There's no perfect anything. And,
Bingo.
Even those huge, really successful businesses, they had their moments in time where it didn't go right and they hit their roadblocks and they made mistakes, and you learn from it and you keep going. And we talk a lot about that. Like, at the end of the day, if this doesn't make it, we're going to be okay.
Right.
We've learned so much, but you also don't want to get to that point in your life where you regret, like,
Oh, I should have done that.
I should have done
Yeah.
that.
Yep, exactly. Well, and very good point, because I think that I know that in my life, when I started my company, my wife, I got a great job offer, and I actually accepted the job. And I was only about a month into my company started, and she said, and generally, guys, I got to tell you, if you're not listening to your wife, you should listen to her, because they're pretty smart. I mean, I always find, I find like you got some pretty good common sense there, Monica. But she said, you know what? You're just always gonna wonder.
Yeah,
if you could have done it.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. And I think, I feel like I had been thinking about this in my head for years before this.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Jason and I were on a trip, and I was talking about, I was like, wouldn't it be so cool to have, at that time I was like a cookie shop or something like that. And it just, I remember driving everywhere. It just played through my head like constantly. It was like, okay, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know, but it just kept coming up. And I think, like you said, I think you have to listen to that. If that's, and flexibility, it looks different now that I look back and to remember what I was thinking compared to what it is now, but it's a lot better. Like, it's different, but it's better. So
you're both saying the same thing. If you hear that, if you feel that it keeps recurring, it keep hearing that song, play it over, at least if you try it, you'll never say you didn't try it, and you just follow that. It's probably something that's really, who knows? If you're in touch with God, it could be God, prompting you, and
or it takes you to something else. Like it's not just a one-stop thing. Like, things lead you to other things.
Sure.
And so,
well, very, very, very interesting. If you had to do something over again, if you had the rewind clock to your advantage, what would you do different? Anything?
I don't know that we would. I feel like you said, but like, we really do take our time in deciding stuff. And I feel like that time is good for us. We need that. I don't know that there's anything.
That's great. You left nothing on the table.
We did it perfect.
If you ask us tomorrow, you might have
it might be different,
but
Chef,
maybe
by the way,
say,
I get to see you this long, No.
Take something off the menu, and
I feel like too, though, a lot of it is like, you have to stay in the here and now.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, because we can all put on our 2020 glasses and look behind us and say, oh, I should have done this, But I almost feel like it's better to be face forward and staying right in the here and now, not worrying about what we did yesterday or what's going to happen.
Change that.
And if I'm worrying about tomorrow, then I'm not fully embracing what's happening right now. And so trying to stay in this and knowing, like, I feel like we acknowledge, like, if something happens and it doesn't go our way, and we acknowledge it and then say, okay, so what did we learn from it? And then let's try to do it better next time, I guess, is kind of my thought pattern on it.
Well, see, and that's what, so I'm so glad you said that, because, one of the ways I got into this whole thing and wrote my book was just that. Back in the 80s, I was given kind of taught best practices, but when I was taught, to seek out and learn best practices, it was in the vein that, if you make a mistake today, think about it, park yourself, think about it. What did I do wrong? What could I, what went right? What should I have done?
Sure.
And what will I do next time? And then carry that over to the next time you run through that same scenario. And that will allow you to improve. And, you're competitive athletics. I'm a soccer player as well. So
Nice.
yes,
Yeah.
Division III.
There you go.
Went to UMSL. So you played a little higher level than I did, but a lot of fun. Love it. And, you always want to seek that improvement capability. And in business, if you I always say complacency breeds mediocrity. If you're just complacent with where you are, you're going to be mediocre. So you always want to say, hey, be humble enough. What did I learn from here? What could I take with me to make the next drop cookie better, make the next bundt cake better, next experience better. So I love it. And that's just something that, lessons learned. I mean, it's just, what do you get out of it and what can you change going forward? There's no harm in improving and wanting to improve.
No.
Just none at all. I mean,
Yeah.
So what is there a really fun product that when you guys get an order, you go, oh yeah, this is what I love?
Oh,
is there? I mean, or is it all fun?
it's all fun. I mean, I
Right.
love cupcakes. I love doing there's certain things that I like doing better than others. I have a massive love-hate relationship with the custom cookies because they're just labor intensive and take a long time.
Right.
But after they're done and I look and I'm like, they're so
Right.
fun.
Right.
But other than that, yeah, I love that we do have kind of a diverse, because it's funny, some weeks will be heavy cookies, some weeks will be heavy cakes, and it's nice we were talking earlier, next week there's a lot of bars to it. I was like, oh, we haven't done bars, a lot of bars. So there's kind of just, it's different all the time. So
Aren't bars,
like
bars, I saw that on your website. I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, I haven't heard that terminology in
See,
so
it's old
The
long.
school.
1950s.
But
Yeah.
that's all my mother made.
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh, my grandma
Bars, yeah.
lemon bars and brownies and
Yeah.
Really butter
they're
cake
so
bar.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's funny you guys are in this biz. I'm going to open up these cupcakes in a second. I'll let you guys explain them a little bit. But one of the things, if you go to my website, one of my I have 255 business tools, and number 70 is the thank you. And I love a genuine and authentic thank you.
Yep.
So in the mid-90s, I started baking cookies for people internally at the company or a couple customers. And so my grandmother had this potato chip cookie, which is just flour, sugar, vanilla extract, Lay's potato chips.
That's awesome.
I mean, butter, and that's it.
Right.
Butter.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it.
All good things come from butter.
These things are a crazy hit. Well, it got to the point where, I started my own sales agency 14 years ago. I get all these customers in these 8 states. And so what I do is I got to this zone where I would bake in December about 2,600 to 2,900 cookies. I never hit more than 3,000. Wow. But then I would spend 2 weeks driving around and hand
Dropping 'em
delivering
off.
them,
Yeah.
saying thank you. And the sheer genuine appreciation I would get from people just because they knew you
did
took
something
the
for it.
time.
It's
Right.
personal.
It wasn't bought, and it was just simple. And I would make chocolate chips too, but the potato chip cookies, I got down to 142 an hour. And I mean, it was like,
That's impressive.
So it was space
Yeah,
utilization
line.
on the pan.
Yes.
It was multiple pans ready, raw materials here, batch going here. And I
Yes.
never wanted to be in a position
Organized.
where the oven, dung, did the ding ding, and I didn't
Was
have
waiting.
something ready to go.
Yes, exactly.
But so I realized how to cut my time down and really crank them out. And it's, the kids, the wife, everybody clears out.
Yeah.
I take the kitchen
It's
over,
baking.
and it's just the factory
Yes.
is in gear. So I know where you're coming from. So I'm going to open this up. Here's a box of cupcakes that Cara and Julie. Oh my gosh,
Are they just
white
vanilla?
icing.
What are they?
There's chocolate and vanilla cake, but then all just vanilla buttercream.
Oh,
And we just had some cute St. Patty's Day sprinkles that I wanted to
It
use.
is almost
so
March, which
I
is
know.
crazy. Yeah.
What kind of frosting are we looking at there?
It's all just our vanilla buttercream. Yep.
Oh,
On chocolate
folks.
cake and our vanilla cake.
Oh boy, I
And they're
can't.
all for you.
I can't be hitting this for like 7 days in a row. I have to get Dietz and Matt. Thank you, Dietz, for bringing this in, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. These look awesome.
Thanks for letting us come today.
Oh my gosh, it's been so fun. You know, I mean, you are both just so authentic.
Oh,
and I'm just really, it's just so genuine. The interview couldn't have been easier, and just felt great.
It's a fun conversation.
I know.
You know, I mean, and yeah. So, what are you? Midfielder, striker, defender? Sweeper.
Yeah.
Are you really?
Oh, long time ago though. Got knees and hips that say no.
Well, a long time ago too. We used to play. I used to play in high school, which we had sweeper, and then we had a point man. So we used to bring our center midfielder back to play a point. So we always kept the triangle. So I was a second string point man, but used to be one of the halfbacks. In the high school, you could rotate. So we could these two halfbacks would just run. These two midfielders would just run. That was a run and kick game in the 70s. And then I played 1 year in Division III. And
where were you at?
Stockton University.
Oh, yeah, that's what you said.
Division III. They ended up winning the NCAA Division III in 2001.
Awesome.
Yeah, they won it finally, 25-1-1. And but I played. We played on a football field. We didn't even have our own pitch back then.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it was
it's really evolved.
Yeah,
it's really changed.
Yeah, but it's great. And Alex is he loves the Big Red out of Liverpool, so he's a Liverpool guy. And
that's awesome.
What's your BPL team? Is there a team you will follow?
I honestly
any of
don't
that?
follow. Yeah, I don't.
Now, did you play?
I'm not a soccer player.
She's got a soccer player at her house.
I have a daughter. My daughter Campbell's a big soccer player. She's center back. She loves it.
So fun.
Oh, she's a Atlanta.
Oh, she likes Atlanta. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So I got to tell you a funny story, and just I was up in Omaha. I do a lot of work up in Omaha with the police up there as well. And so I was in this gentleman's store one day, and he was a woman came in, and anyway, they had a little conversation. She left, and he goes, "Oh." Her daughter's now in college playing soccer. She said she was a standout in high school. You want to see the final of the state championship with her daughter? I said, sure. So her daughter was a sweeper.
Yeah.
So her daughter never scored a goal in her high school career. They're in the state championship game in Nebraska. This is probably 2014 maybe.
Okay.
In the state championship game, the keeper from the other team kicks a ball inordinately far. It's got a volley to it. There's about 20 seconds to go. The keeper had come out to do this kick.
Put it over her head.
So here comes this young lady. It's 12 seconds to go. 0-0. She just kicks this volley. Goes over the keeper's head, one bounce into the net.
That's awesome.
They win the state championship.
That's
Only
awesome.
goal she's ever scored in her high school career.
That's awesome.
The most important one.
Is that not a way to finish?
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, I was crying watching the thing, going, "Oh my God!"
That is awesome. Yeah.
So
don't say you can't score from the back.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot
can
of
always
fun.
attack from back there.
A lot of fun. So, and we do end every show, which we've had some. You guys are really taking this seriously. So cool. But Lost in the Shuffle track. We love rock and roll or inspirational songs that never made mainstream. So much, but they mean something to each one of us. And I dip into a lot of them because I do it once a week. But I asked Julie and Cara to pick their Lost in the Shuffle track that they'd love to play today. And so what we're going to do, just so you know, it'll appear up in a little, if you're looking at the YouTube video, it's going to be up in the upper right-hand corner. It's called a card, and somebody can just click on the card and then go to the YouTube version of it. So what is your song and artist that you picked?
So mine was, it's a song called In Christ Alone. I was raised in a very traditional church. So hymns, I love all hymns. And when I just feel like I need that, that's where I go. And so that hymn, so really anybody that sings it, I'm a big fan, but I think the one I put was the Shane and Shane version of it. But it grounds me.
Yeah.
Like when things are crazy, it just is a reminder of where I need to be.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, great song.
one.
By the way, Shane and Shane, Texas A&M University got together. They were in part of a little ministry, basically a worship band called Breakaway, I believe it was called. And they
Very cool.
Yeah, they got together, and so they sing a really touching version of
That's a
it,
good
which
version.
it's so.
I'm gonna have to go listen
Yeah.
to it now.
Thank you for that.
You can hit on the link.
And your song and artist would be
Rescue by Lauren Daigle. Yeah, it's a good one. I feel like it's the one that I go to when life is really down maybe a little bit in a dark spot, and it's like that reminder that God's always there, like even when you don't think so. So for me, that's very grounding. Usually lifts me right back up where I need to be. So that's good.
Well, Lauren certainly made a lot of headlines in the last number of years.
Yeah.
2 Grammys, 7 Dove Awards.
Her voice is ridiculous.
Yes, it is. And so Louisiana Cajun music she
Yes.
started, and
She did the anthem. Was it was it Super Bowl, or it may have been one of the playoffs, but she did the anthem, and it was
really good.
she's so good.
Yeah, it really just touches your soul. When
Oh
you hear her,
yeah, her voice does. Yes.
And Rescue is from the Look Up Child, her 3rd album, and just really, she, as far as Christian artists, and even, bleeding over to contemporary.
She is,
yeah.
yeah.
But she's great. So, let me say, again, just been a super pleasure. You're so likable and affable, and it's just so cool. So I wish you all the best. We will send
Thank you.
anybody and everybody there. I'm still trying to figure out a way I could bring a lot of people there. I think I may have something I'm going to talk to a buddy of mine about. He's going to come out from New Jersey, and he's got some cool things. We may be able to fill that house up. But at any rate, I wish you all the best. I thank you so much.
Thanks for letting us come.
Yeah,
this was
well,
great.
it was really a ton of fun, and thank you for all the great goodies. And again, anybody, you want to just give them your Instagram and social media and all
Oh, you want me to?
that stuff?
Website is fromscratchbakehouse.com. Best way to do orders for us is orders at fromscratchbakehouse.com, and then both Insta and Facebook are both just From Scratch Bakehouse. So
Okay.
it's easy to find us.
And you're over in again Old Town Wentzville, historic section, really cool house, great house.
It's a yellow house, so it is hard to miss.
Yeah.
It's yellow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
good.
Well, thanks so much. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, always respond to 100% of your inquiries. Follow up, but most importantly, follow through, because that is where the rubber meets the road. And don't forget customer perception. We live in a day and age that it is customer reality. Do everything you can to shape that perception to be airtight. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Take care. Thank you again.
Thank you.